Okay, folks, as you see, we have Aristo again today, and this is the video for the 26th of April, and the title is Against the Grain. Aristo, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Ron. It is my hope that maybe we can turn this into maybe some kind of dialogue at some point along the line so I don't have to peter myself out, talking endlessly here for a half an hour.
Well,
But
I'm sure you'll trigger things that'll bring a response from me.
who knows? Because again, this is one of those topics that just came to me a little before we came online. And perhaps because after so much talking, after so many months and years of being here, making these occasional videos, it's not like I'm running out of topics, but I want to know what is useful to actually speak about. I don't want to rehash the main stuff that's already out there, main stuff meaning what's on the news, because these days what's on the news even more than ever before. Before it used to be the mainstream media was obviously a distraction. It had its narrative, but now the alternative media has become almost as much of a distraction. It all blends together. And also I've noticed in some people, maybe not obviously, and maybe in most people actually online, especially among the controlled group of the Facebook friends type thing, who most of them, they became my friends because of being on your channel, and who essentially, got to know me through my Facebook page, again, because of the comments I made on your channel and your Facebook page. And I've been noticing just minor behavioral changes. And of course, everybody goes through shit in life and all of that. But it's almost like the enthusiasm, the intensity of what they were doing has become too much. It's not just Facebook is too much, but everything is too much. It was almost like so much was invested in making a big change that the big bully establishment reared its ugly head in a way that could not be handled or was too traumatic. Or some form of programming stepped in, and the force of the desire to make a change has been redirected into something harmless to the establishment, or basically that suits their ends. Some kind of, let me give an application where nobody can be offended, for example, or who cares if they are at this point. For this topic, let's say you're somebody who was fighting for social justice and fighting against the establishment, and actually all of a sudden the only thing you're fighting for is flat earth theory,
Yeah.
Something like that. See, that's a nice, everybody knows this crap, and the people that don't think it's crap, who cares? They're in the minority. The thing is, why do I care about offending people? Because it's a pain in the ass to have to listen to all the crap of offended people all the time. I'm offended, you're offended. Well, the thing is that the only way to make a change is to go against the grain, as the title says. Going with the flow is fine if you're going with the flow of the universe. But if you're going with the flow of society, you're actually going against the grain of the universe for the most part, the grain of true evolution, the grain of truth, the grain of, you're creating a mark that's a scar upon nature, when what you really want to do is create a mark that's a scar upon the matrix. You want to be able to make a lasting pattern in the matrix. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to vandalize the matrix? Because it disrupts its pattern. The matrix hypnotizes us based on a continuous, uninterrupted flow that may seem to be going in ups and downs. The image is like a stream. You have a brook. There's stones in the water. The water will always rise up. I'm using a metaphor that is often constructive for mystics and people, philosophers, esoteric wisdom, this and that. of, you know, water adapts to circumstances, it goes around, it goes up and down. Well, this is what the matrix does too. If you have somebody who listens to you avidly, sometimes they are not somebody who listens to you to get information or inspiration for a good cause. They are listening for resources to strategically use against your own ideals or against even you.
I do think that that's true.
You know, you may have friends that come, and I heard that one of the tactics of trolls these days is to actually be very polite at first and to ask questions and to slowly guide you into where they want to have you, so you deny your own statement. You know, instead of coming off as an evil troll, there's a systematic troll, and these types, I would suspect, are far more, shall we say, supportive of an anti-cause, or maybe they're on a payroll, or maybe they just want to make waves. I heard a story of a German guy who would make videos bashing all of these blogger types, and he wasn't a shiller, he wasn't paid, he would just be insulting them and bashing them. Why did you do that? You know, and then ultimately they tracked his IP address, and, you know, and he said, well, I want to get attention. I want to let people out there know that I can do this, and maybe somebody's going to hire me for it, you know. So, and other people just get off on it, you know, using reason to just screw any idealist, anything that has some kind of ideal. But if it's very systematic and impartial, and if you can almost detect the emotional energy is impersonal, it's almost impersonal, like the person doesn't really give a shit about bashing you or not. They're just doing a job. Other people have careers that basically, some people in the medical profession, for example, it's in their best interest to promote a certain allopathic medical ideal. And to,
which doesn't work in many cases.
Yes.
Not all cases.
I notice it, for example, in stuff about veterinarians. Take your pet to the vet, no matter what. All these stupid things where a lot of people report, well, you know, the pet just gives it drugs, and the drugs screwed the pet up. So you have to take, also, for example, don't feed your pet raw food. When predators, dogs and cats, especially cats, thrive on raw food, especially, you know, but the system itself, to make a small digression, like the vegan thing that sits in my craw a little bit, since I'm a bona fide meat eater, and it keeps me healthy, and I respect vegetarians and have resorted to being a vegetarian in my day, but absolute veganism is completely unhealthy as far as I'm concerned. Again, you know, of course, you don't have to put that down in the blurb. It's not really part of the.
I wrote the word down. You're going to write the blurb, so.
Okay, yeah. But but what makes, it's not the practice. I mean, because you say, okay, hey man, I practice this, I do this, I have this type of thing. It's healthy for me. But to actually turn it into a kind of religious movement or a cult movement, to say basically, oh, you kill animals, you should just eat plants. Well, if we all eat plants, we're going to destroy the ecosystem. You know, you cannot turn the whole planet into a damn farm. There's too much biomatter then. And what are you going to do with all the animals? What happened when humans stopped using horses in warfare and life? All the horses went to the glue factory. The horse population went down drastically. You're going to kill all the animals you don't need. You know, there won't be any cows. It's not like you're going to have reserves for them. And then, so what? The predators can eat, but we can't?
Well, the Indians used to eat buffalo, and there was a lot of buffalo in the United States. Now, if you want to see a buffalo, you've got to go to a zoo or something.
A lot of people are claiming that, well, the thing is, in our society, it's not because we have a large population, it's the way society is structured. The only way, the way society is structured right now, that our population can actually get by is with big corporations. We have been conditioned to that. And you cannot, big corporations, the only way they're going to give you the amount of plant matter that you need is by genetically modified plants. That's what people are going to end up eating. And in the end, they're going to process the plants into some form that's liquid or tablets or whatever the hell, that they're going to mix with corpse meat of some kind, either pets or humans or whatever. I mean, it's going to be like that. And people are all of a sudden going for this, which they've never gone to. Even in the 70s, there was a massive vegetarian movement, you know. It wasn't as much of a veganism, and look at society, you know. But this isn't an anti-vegan video. But I'm talking about a fanatical response. Is where does this fanatical energy come from? It comes from not being able to go against the grain where you originally intended. You don't want to stop your momentum, and the establishment doesn't want to stop your momentum of resistance, of antinomian resistance, because then you will come face to face with the fact that something stopped you. A big fist came into your face, or a big boot, and said, okay, you have been, 1984. Let's put it that way, So to coin a phrase, you have been 1984. So that's it. And you know that you're under the boot. Right now, if you're fighting for something and you're venting and arguing, and now your focus is not the big establishment, it's the little guy on your Facebook page. Or it's somebody else, or it's, let's do this, let's do that, let's crush these people, And all of these labels of intolerance of people who are promoting tolerance. You're a sexist, you're a racist, you're whatever, you're this, you're that. It's going to get old, of course. But the whole point is because people who are into this stuff are also entertained by drama. And a lot of them are the same people who say, oh, it's just drama. It's just, whatever fatty thing crosses. So I'm saying this, it's like, okay, let's call this a test. If the establishment can bully us without actually throwing us in jail or torturing us physically, I mean, it's not like the early Christians that were thrown to the lions. If we can just be media bullied or harassed from thousands of miles away by somebody who just talks to us or writes to us even, we don't even hear the tone of voice, and we flip out and change our behavior, then what the fuck revolution were we supposed to engage in the first place? How the fuck could anything change if we are that susceptible to altering our course and fooling ourselves that, oh, we'll go against the grain, any grain, whatever, as long as it just, gives me the impression that I'm doing something. And so my sense here is of let's just, instead of questioning others, let's question, and not question ourselves in terms of value, because a lot of people are afraid of facing themselves and questioning themselves because of some ultimate conclusion that they are bad or have to be punished, or even though they really will resist that, deep down they're like, oh, so I'm a failure now, or if I don't believe this, then the world sucks and we have to kill ourselves. It's like, come on,
Well, I've had to go through some of the most intense self-questioning of my life when they took my house, which I've already made lots of videos and talked about that a lot. But that certainly put me face to face with things weren't working.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you say it's never over, but when you go against the grain, you don't back down. You don't back down easily. But the thing is, the grain is constantly trying to maneuver us into a sense of complacency and going with the flow, and then giving us a false grain, a specially tailored grain that's matrix created to give us the sense that we are resisting and doing our part. And so we don't have to worry and feel bad. This is just a form of, I don't know, what do you call it? Some kind of weird masturbatory response of just, self-coddling. On the other hand, if somebody does look at that, like, oh, but that's a criticism, it's like, come on, man, then you really hate yourself. That's really funny, because on the one hand, you want to always feel good, but you really hate yourself. So you're your own worst enemy. You hate yourself because if you detect a little bit of the need to change your course, you have to beat yourself up about it. It's like why are we beating ourselves up so much? Why are we beat up by other people. And a lot of people who like to beat other people up do it so they don't beat themselves up, because there's a lot of self-hatred masking as intolerance of others. And guilt trips masking as, oh, you should be tolerant. Well, who's the top? Look who's calling the kettle black, is it?
The guilt is a big part of the control mechanism. I mean, if they can make you feel guilty about anything,
Exactly.
they being whatever the system is.
Exactly.
And all in many systems that are in a bigger system.
It's like the spiritual concept of karma. This has nothing to do with reward and punishment. It doesn't. If you know Indian philosophy, karma has nothing to do with, oh, it's your karma, you're being punished. No, that's a Christian concept or a Muslim concept or a Jewish concept. A deity or force of nature or reality punishing you for being bad or making wrong decisions or whatever, even if you don't phrase it that way, it's like, oh, well, guess I fucked up in a previous life because I have to suffer now. It's like, no, this is just a simple cause and effect. You change your course. And even in its original tradition, this concept has been used to manipulate people. All these kinds of concepts are. The thing is that, A follows B. It's very simple. That's what karma means. Karma is just a Sanskrit word meaning action. It says, well, you act, and acts have consequences for good or bad or whatever. And usually it's more complicated than that. There are no, most acts have mixed consequences. But the point, how do you relate to yourself? And that's important, because are you the grain you're going against? Because, and that hurts. So if you're going against your own grain or who you are for the sake of not being punished or for this, then you're going to hate yourself. And then you're going to want to project that outwardly. Or you're going to make all kinds of funny stories, funny to your, higher self stories about why you're avoiding yourself, why you're doing this. So going against the grain, but which grain? There's this thing called antinomianism, where basically you go against the law. You're an outlaw, but against an unjust society, which for the most part it is, or against something that's imbalanced. There are spiritual philosophies like Tantrism that say, society it's anti-spiritual. So in order to be liberated, you have to actively challenge the taboos, break the rules. Some of these things are extreme, practices, and we don't have to engage in that. But the thing is, do we have tools that allow us to decondition ourselves? Do we have resources that allow us to stop beating ourselves up and moving in a direction without losing our momentum, without losing our passion? Because the moment you lose your passion or something happens, you either have to admit defeat or just change your course and pretend you're, I'm still moving even though I'm retreating, which is fine and it's necessary sometimes, unless you say, no, I'm not retreating, I'm just walking backwards or going, or I have a new goal now, which is the opposite of what I had before.
Yeah, I remember a song came to mind when you said that, walking backwards down the stairs, trying to get higher. How can I get anywhere walking backwards down the stairs?
It's something like that, And I'm trying to be non-specific here. And in fact, I can only be non-specific if I'm going to be truthful, because there is a triggered response that's programmed into us again regarding pointing fingers and defensiveness. And it's triggered because people do point fingers, because they do attack each other. But at the same time, the behavior of somebody attacking and somebody speaking passionately, it can be indistinguishable, especially if you've been hurt a few times, or more than a few times. So the point is, yes, go against the grain, but use discernment. What's your grain? Do you know? Are you sure? There's other people who are into, for example, you should never have a firm conviction in anything. You should never have, everything is just an opinion. oh, so just so happens that everybody but the fucking psychopaths who are fucking so-called in control, everybody is just wishy-washy and completely anything goes, and whatever the psychopaths say, they tend to follow because they're the ones with convictions. And so but of course they don't appear on Facebook, or if they do, they have been trained in rhetoric, or whatever it is, that mind control techniques or neuro-linguistic programming. And so people just collapse under the weight of that intimidation. The thing is, and why should I be intimidated? For me, it's the off switch. That's the solution that I chose. A lot of people did, If I start seeing crap, I'll just leave. And I've had people, even sometimes when I don't see crap, I just don't feel like, debating, and say, oh, sorry, I'm leaving. Or I don't say anything.
I won't butt heads with people. I mean, I'll have honest discussions, but I have no desire to get into arguments with people.
Well, what the wishy-washies don't understand is that, look, man, if you've spent decades searching, eventually you're going to come to some kind of conclusion. It's only human, because you can't act without a conclusion. You can't act if you're changing your mind every 5 seconds, or if somebody's constantly convincing you that, it's like, what are you going to do then? What's this crap? This is hypocrisy. The only time somebody who, engaged in a debate and tried to convince me to not have opinions at all is somebody who wants to control me or lord it over, because that's an opinion. And again, for me, an opinion is just a matter of intellectual masturbation, of fucking basically, oh, it could be this, it could be that, I'll choose this because of whatever flimsy reason. A conviction is my tried and true experience, my emotional anchoring into it. Oh, you have a self-interest. Of course I do. But
we all do.
We all do. It's an existential self-interest. For example, if you believe in a Christian God, you may have an existential self-interest into that. That's the world you want to live in. It makes sense to you. Oh, that's selfish. That's another manipulation. The most selfish people will call everybody else selfish. It's like the pastors that tell people to abstain from sex and then end up with prostitutes.
And that happens a lot if we're to see the result or see the testimonies.
Well, sociologists have even described it. It's like, it's a male who basically wants to keep all the other males from from being competition, so he convinces them to abstain so he can get their wives and daughters and whatever. And that's what cult leaders do. It's classical animal herd behavior, But the point is, it's all manipulation. So if I'm manipulated, I need to not say, oh, I'm manipulated, I need to basically sit down and see where the grain is here that I need to go against and how to do that. I need to look into myself and see, what are my resources? Each of us are different, even though we have common traits. However, each of us has something we can use as a resource. Sometimes the resource is not cultivated. Sometimes it's been corrupt. Even if you cultivate a resource, for example, some people are analytical, some people are inspired, some people are both, some people are artistic, etc. Some people, need to go through physical dietary, changes to actually, like fasting, to clear up before they can actually become courageous, or something like that. Know yourself in that respect. And even if you lost your resource, it's not like a money that you drop in the street and somebody picks it up and you lost it for good. You basically misplaced it within yourself, or it's been smothered by something else, mostly misconception, mostly self-hatred or fear. But fear isn't always a terror thing. Fear can be a tiny apprehension. And they say it's like evidence appearing false, evidence appearing real or something. No, that's manipulation fear. Real fear is when you have real evidence, something's out to get you and you're doing the smart thing and avoiding it. And you need to be emotionally motivated to do that. Everything we do, we need emotional motivation. The Buddha path of being completely impartial is for the Buddha. We are not the Buddha. If you're going to be the Buddha, then you're open to a whole other bag of resources, resourcefulness, a whole bunch of psychic abilities, a whole bunch of, then you have a different perspective. And that's fine. But you can't pretend to be the Buddha when you're not. You can't pretend to be Jesus when you're not. They call that blasphemy for a reason, because you're fooling yourself and it's dangerous. You end up stepping over the cliff, thinking that you can actually walk on air, let alone on water. Or you beat yourself up completely. Extremes. You know, some people, like our friend the atheist, you know, there's like either or. But even both and isn't a guarantee. It's dynamic. It goes, you know, between everything. So I am all for going against the grain, but choose your grain wisely. You know? And I believe that if you do, you will gain the self-respect, the real self-respect that can open your eyes to the matrix. Because in my honest opinion, and here's the little parting gem here that maybe can be, you know, validated in one's experience, that self-respect is the foundation of the capacity to discern and see through the matrix. True self-respect and true integrity. Okay, I leave you with that. Come what may. Thank you until next time.
Wow, you finished way early compared to
when
held
you
up
give
5
me,
minutes.
when you give me the 5 minutes, you know.
Yeah, but
I'm like,
you only used up 4 of them.
Yeah.
All right, Aristo, thank you again. And till next time, we'll see where we go from here.
We'll see where we go.
I am taking one day at a time myself. So there's days I want to throw in the towel, and there's days I think, then what do I do?
There's days that I feel I'm choking on the towel.